go into the rack as long as Jorge approves it. It's now under the logo of the Pet Responsibility Program and not, the shelter, or not Animal Services. If anyone has any comments or sees any problems with it, just let me know. This is not the final version. An addition that was just made in the past few days was to put on feral spay neuter. So when people come in asking, hey, where can I take feral cats around here to get spayed or neutered, that's an added column to the sheet as well. Anything I'm leaving out, guys?
I think this is just hopefully a nice step in the direction of how the Pet Responsibility Program can partner with the shelter to help create needed things. So as you all see a need, we can talk about how we can develop something for you. So our hope is that as the months go by, our group is going to meet every couple months, our subcommittee, and we'd like to come up with at least one new resource each time we meet. So if there's some priorities that you have that you'd like us to tackle, let us know.
Can I make a suggestion for one?
Yes, ma'am.
We run into people that have issues with being able to afford veterinarian care. You know, when I say that, their animal gets hurt and we go out because it's injured and we're doing welfare checks on them. And it's not that they don't want to take their animal to the vet, it's that they can't afford that large vet bill.
And that's on here.
Is it?
Yep. Do you
On the
have a
bottom.
copy?
I do, I've just not read all of
Yeah.
them yet.
So it's under other assistance.
Down towards the bottom. So
So there's the ones that have, say, in parentheses, medical assistance. Do you have funds that people can apply for to help them with vet bills and things like that?
I would just make that more clear.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
just saying wellness, like I get that shots and stuff, but like for example, if I'm unaware with wellness, well my pet's not well, so I'm gonna take them here, and they may not receive those services. And then other assistance, I'm not just looking at it. I understand what you mean, but I don't understand what other assistance means.
Okay. We
So
can
I would just make sure that's very clear because, for example, you guys may not be there when they go to grab it. Or even if you talk to them at the shelter, then when they go home and something happens 6 months from now, they may need, medical assistance. So I just want to make sure it's clear for those that aren't familiar.
so maybe adding, like if you think about the way it's presented now and flip it, and then just add a couple columns and pull that stuff from the bottom up and just get it all
Like
in
possibly
there.
or low
Yeah,
cost
yeah,
veterinary
columns.
care.
Yeah, okay.
Or need help paying her.
need help
Yeah.
paying your vet bills or
Something
something like
like
that.
that.
And then
Okay.
the only one that would come out of every Project Bark and that can go in a different place instead of dog houses, because that's the only separate.
Yeah.
Those three there are medical assistance programs with vet bills, so that can be a heading. You
Yeah,
can just take out Bark.
yeah.
Yeah,
I would
we
just
can make that
sure
more
that's
explicit.
Absolutely.
so when they go home, they can stick on their fridge and say, Sparky got hurt, I can go here.
Yeah, and if anyone else knows of any resources that are not on here, we do not want to leave anyone out that's a genuine resource in the community. Just let me know and I'll let the group know. We're trying to be as inclusive as possible within the Guilford County area.
Is, NCAP is not on here, do you think they should be? I mean, they're not really for pets, but if people have pets in their yard that they want to, help with, maybe that could be like a footnote, sort of like this one. Instead of simply in the,
Yeah.
in the column, but,
The thing about FCAP is they're not like regularly available, they have special spaces, but we can think about it, like that may be like a footnote or something like that. These the ones in the rows are pretty much like all businesses that operate 9 to 5 that you can call, or that, that kind, so it's a little bit different than FCAP. but
So,
we can
so
think about it.
question, how do you see this working at intake? You come in with a injured cat, I give you this piece of paper, and then you call around?
So how I personally see it mostly working, and I take this as just my opinion, the other day, actually, when we had the meeting, I guess when Ruby and Chris and I were leaving, we ran into a gentleman who, he was there at the shelter early, but he was leaving with 4 puppies that, I guess the shelter had given him a date to come back with, but his dog at home had puppies, and he didn't know what to do with the puppies. So we were just talking with him, and we ran back and got a best friends book, because he was interested in getting the mom dog, which he had at home, spayed, but didn't have any information on that. So like intake could have said, like, hey, work with you on getting the puppies in when we have an opening intake. But meanwhile, please think about getting the mom spayed, and here's the information. Something like that.
Right, but we need to be careful because we get criticized because we turn people away. right? So it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a two-sided coin. If somebody comes in with an injured animal they want to surrender, then they're leaving with a piece of paper for them to call around with an injured animal still under their care. It's like, for me, I guess I internally would need more information on what these costs would look like, so we can give them a little bit more information than a paw print for, you know, it's just going to be hard. Having managed programs like this in the past, folks want information. They just don't want more work. And if the animal's injured, like if the animal's in need of medical assistance, what does that assistance look like? Because I don't know any of these groups to have a better understanding. And if it's a better understanding, then we need to train our team to say, hey, this is what it looks like, but then we can't be promoting specific organizations to say, hey, go to this clinic because they'll do it for $5, or go to that clinic because they'll do it cheaper. So,
Yeah, in the case of an injured animal, okay, so I guess, we can take that specific example. Frankly, there's no organization here that's gonna treat an injured animal. They're not on here, that would be a private
right,
vet.
right,
But, so I would imagine the conversation would be not so much the shelter turning down an injured animal, but like if a person calls, like, my animal is injured, I don't know what
where
to
to
do.
do, okay, then we can point them in the right direction. We
Then
can have
you
this
have
information on the website. They can go here, here's some
Or
phone
here,
numbers.
or
That's not a-
basically you go to a vet and if you need help with the vet's bills, like, here's where you go, right? Because we're not promoting any vet here. To me, it's a different issue, like if the person really wants to surrender an injured animal and the shelter's full, this is not about that. This is more that person calling on the phone.
No,
It seems to
I get it.
happen sometimes.
I get it, yeah.
My dog is really sick, will the shelter treat it low cost for me?
Right,
Look.
so the other thing that almost 4 million homeless animals are euthanized each year, we don't even get close to 4 million. So we need to be very
I was gonna
specific
ask
where the
what-
4 million comes from.
In what area, is that nationally?
That's nationally, and that's actually probably an overestimate at this point, because it is dropping. So should we just, we can just take that line out?
I would eliminate it because
We can
this is
take it
not
out.
about preventing euthanasia, this is about providing assistance.
Right, that actually came from our spay neuter poster, just seemed like got copied and pasted. So we'll take that off. And we can actually, I mean, the whole bottom message, which has to do with spay neuter, can potentially come off since this
This
is
is
a broader
assistance.
flyer than
Yeah.
spay neuter.
This is
So
euthanasia.
the whole bottom can come off and that leaves us with more room to say other things. Yeah, that's a good comment, thank you. And also, like, you know, I mean, you may decide intake doesn't have a use for this, that's fine. I just, there's plenty of people that come up into adoption that say, hey, where can I go for low-cost wellness, or where can I get low-cost heartworm treatment? So this is like for that too, it's for us volunteers to hand out, or for them to take. So it may not necessarily have a place in intake, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, cause you're not suggesting that people come in with an animal and intake say, oh, well, we're not gonna take
Now
an
you go
animal.
here.
you
Exactly.
go.
No,
That's
Exactly.
not.
It's
that's
when
not
intake is
what
already
we're
having a
going with
conversation with them, would this help them in that conversation?
Right,
It's
so
more like
if
that.
they're interested, if they say, I really wanna keep my animal, but I don't know how, intake might say,
Have you
well,
tried this?
have you tried these, here's some information, but we're not gonna turn you away if you still
That's-
can't handle
that's-
it, but, you know, if you're interested, this is some information.
Yeah, this was never meant to be an alternative to anything, just, if you need it, and it will help you take one.
Well, I think this is really a good first start. A couple of comments I make. One is that, I know there's another group that, you know, as you recall, there was an attempt to bring together a consortium of people, back in, what was it, September? Alicia Gonzalez pulled that together and then had to cancel it due to a storm. And it is in some ways, it's not leaflets, but it's going even further in terms of trying to work in communities. Now admittedly, that's the vision, that's not what's going on right now, and as far as I know, she hasn't been able to reschedule that meeting. If you haven't had a chance to reach out to her, you might, if Jorge has her contact information.
I tried, she's super busy.
Okay, so I guess that's why she hadn't rescheduled.
Yes.
So anyway, just to be aware, so the right hand, the left hand. One thing about Greensboro is there's a ton of really caring people in a whole lot of different areas of Greensboro. But we also have an overabundance of organizations somewhat overlapping each other.
Well, Lisa Gonzalez is
And
not an organization.
I know she's not. I know, I'm making just sort of this is sort of Carl's civic statement. And so we wanna make sure of anything we do, if there's a way to pull people together as opposed opposed to having multiple groups who wanna do that. It's appropriate, I think, for the auspices here, to do that. The other statement that I'd make on this is, one of the things I hope we can do in 2019 is get more actively involved with DSS and see how we can get this in the hands of the clients of DSS, because that'll help us in the areas where Jorge's gonna be working with this community animal services initiative. Because a lot of those clients don't need to know this and don't.
Oh.
That's where I'm going. That, they won't necessarily show up at the shelter. They just won't know what to do.
Right.
So to the extent that we can provide this information, and I don't know what kind of, at their intake, for lack of a better word, we can apply for the various services of DSS. I don't know what they're providing, but if this could become part of whatever information they're given,
Your pet owner, yeah.
because they do have pets.
I mean, I think the bigger picture here is the pet responsibility program is doing a lot of work in elementary schools, and now starting to go into high schools. Jorge has talked with Ruby about potentially also focusing on the elementary schools that are gonna be in the area where he's targeting, the neighborhoods, so that makes sense. So all of these resources that we're envisioning developing are gonna serve dual purposes. I mean, like, this is something that the pet responsibility program would conceivably hand out as part of their program. And if any of these can be of benefit to the shelter, that's what the link is. And I just think personally, after spending so much time in adoption, that this particular one and some of the other ones I'm trying to fill the rack with, are, because I know what kind of questions people ask. But some you may say, I don't particularly see a need for at the shelter, and that's fine. We take
And
no
the other
offense.
thing you could do it, well, they have to be careful, because I realize these are not, there's issues with certain information on a government website. But you could always put possibly a subsite or a link that could have just these documents where you could print them off or whatever.
Yeah.
Hang at the site, so that's just another
Yes.
thought,
that's-
or you could have a promote a responsibility pet ownership website, which would be a real simple-minded
Right,
website.
that's a goal that we're talking about.
Nothing terribly fancy. There's a third thing, and it went through my head, but I've forgotten it. I guess I'll have to take gray hair. But it'll come back, I'm not sure. Thank you, Ben, we appreciate it.
We also do microchips.
Okay. Yeah, Paul the microchip, see, that's what we need, it's like bingo.
Yeah, that's right, to look at these and make sure